to me, the number one thing in decision making is bravery.
It is about being brave and decisive on being brave. You're given the job, you have to take decisions. The worst is when you don't know or when you're not deciding what to do.
The environment can change. Suddenly, the rate of taxation can change. Suddenly, bank repo rate can change. Suddenly, tariffs can change. You've taken a decision and the environment has changed. You've got to have the bravery to say, no, in those conditions, I took the right decision.
I say that to everyone. I said, you can criticize a captain at the end of the day's play, but remember, he has to take that decision in the morning. Welcome back to Bandhan Bank Connect Season 2. Off the pitch, I am Saurav Ganguly, and today we talk about a quality that tests every leader at some point: the ability to make decisions under pressure. There are moments when you have only a few seconds to choose a direction. The facts may not be complete, the conditions may not be ideal, and yet the team waits for your call. Every leader has lived those memories and moments, and it is in those situations that decision-making becomes a responsibility and a measure of trust. In my career, I learned that you will never have perfect information, but you must still decide. Sometimes a decision is instinctive, sometimes it comes from experience, but you have to stand by it and own the outcome. That is the only way a team moves forward. With me again is someone who has watched many of those moments unfold from the commentary box from very close. He has seen how a single decision can change the pace of a match or a direction of a long series. Harsha is here, and I look forward to another meaningful conversation with him.
Thanks, Saurav. As you were doing that piece to camera, I was thinking, the great leaders always say the W's and the L's only go against the captain's name. People can give you advice, people can give you suggestions. Eventually, captains are judged by the quality of decisions they make. And that, in all my years of watching cricket, seeing a lot of my friends were very, very senior in corporate life, what separated them from others was the fact that they took those decisions. And to some extent, that is why some people are very good vice captains. They're very good at looking at all the facts. They're very good at thinking what could be the right path. Maybe they don't have the bravery to take the decision. And one of the words that I'd love to add to that opener that you took was bravery. The difference between a CEO and a consultant. Companies have consultants. Consultants can lay out all the possible scenarios. As we were taught in management schools, you create decision trees, you evaluate each of those proposals. It seems very easy. It requires bravery. So to me, the number one thing in decision making is bravery.
It is about being brave and decisive on being brave. You're given the job, you have to take decisions. The worst is when you don't know or when you're not deciding what to do. And you also have to understand that in life, in the corporate world, in sport, your decision will always not be correct. You're human. But if the majority is correct, then I think you've done a good job. The best thing someone told me, and I keep telling to young people who are in difficult positions in life or positions where you have to take a call, when you go to bed in the night and put your head on the pillow, or when you're on your own, just ask yourself whether you've taken this interest in the best interest of your boss, your company, or your team. As long as you can answer that question, I think you'll be fine, because all decisions you'll take will not be correct. All decisions you take will not give you the best results you want. But if the majority of them do, I think you've done a great job.
It's interesting. I heard almost exactly the same line from Harsh Mariwala, who runs a very successful FMCG company. He said, every time I was unsure of what decision to take, I would just close my eyes and say, what is right for my company? And I would take that call. But the reason I also said bravery was sometimes you take a call and suddenly you find that either conditions have changed or something has happened. A key player has suddenly gone away, or suddenly the conditions have changed. It started to rain. You've got to be able to stick to that decision that you took and not keep the doubts at bay saying, maybe I took a wrong decision. Because in business,
that happens as well.
The environment can change. Suddenly, the rate of taxation can change. Suddenly, bank repo rate can change. Suddenly, tariffs can change. You've taken a decision and the environment has changed. You've got to have the bravery to say, no, in those conditions, I took the right decision.
I say that to everyone. I said, you can criticize a captain at the end of the day's play, but remember, he has to take that decision in the morning. So you have an hindsight, but he has to be impulsive on that particular point.
I spent so many years in the commentary box. The one thing I've learned is the easiest decisions to take are the ones you don't have to take. So we are sitting here and think, you have to win the toss and bat. But it's a decision you don't have to take. So the easiest thing to do is something like that. But also there are a lot of tough decisions that you have to make. And I thought I'd talk to you about a couple of popular, good decisions and a couple of tough, maybe unpopular decisions.
Coming to decisions, before you ask me that question, uh, when you take a decision, the biggest mistake you make is by saying, I'll take this decision. What will others think? What happens if it fails? Now you can't control that. Moment you start thinking about it, you will never be able to take decisions. Your captaincy, your leadership, your decision making in corporate world cannot be measured or decided by criticism, fans, and people who talk and write about you, or people who in the evening sit back and say that this is not right. So that courage and that guts you need to have, and that capability you need to have, and that's what separates the good leaders, the successful ones, not so successful ones. There are people who think, let it be, why do I want to get on the wrong side? I'm doing well, things are going well, why do I want to take that risk? But if you don't take risk, you'll never go forward. I'm a firm believer of that.
One of the things we talk about with leadership also is that there are wartime generals where there's lots of things happening and you've got to navigate, take decisions on the spot. And there are peacetime managers. Things are flowing nicely. You don't have to change too much. You've got a really well-settled team. I would imagine being captain of the Australian team at say around 2004, 5, 6. Everyone knew what their role was. You had to ensure that everyone was in the right environment. But sometimes you got wartime generals, and I thought when you started, you needed to be a wartime general to change a lot of things. But also you had to take decisions that involved people who were very dear to you. In that great test match that changed the course of many, many things in test match cricket right here in Kolkata, was a decision to move a very, very high quality number 3 down to number 6. And sure, I don't need to tell you, people are very proud of their batting positions. Suddenly to tell someone you're number 6 today and that guy is number 3, not easy.
Well, it's instinctive, strategic as well, because if you remember the test, VVS was not out at the end of the first innings. He got 60 odd. He was batting well, so you did not want him to go back to the dressing room and start again maybe a day's time. Also, it was a strategic decision because you needed the runs to keep going. Rahul, a great player he is, hadn't done well in the first 3 innings. There was a feeling that the strike's not rotating enough, not enough runs at the early part with the new ball. Because in India, the old ball gets very difficult because of the dry pitches, the spinning ball. So it was a tactical and an instinctive decision. No one knew that even the parrot sitting on the tree would not be able to say that VVS would get a double 100 and we would win that test match. So sometimes you have to take decisions on knowledge, on what you think can happen, and then hope for the best. And that's why you're a captain. In Bandhan Bank, when the markets are down, when things are not going well, you have to take a decision based on experience, based on what you've seen, and based on gut. I think when you take decisions, all these 3 aspects come into the game. Your knowledge, your experience, and your gut feel at that particular moment. And as I said, don't repent what you do as long as you put your head on the pillow and say that I've done for the best interest of the team.
Similarly now with, say, someone like VVS Lakshman, someone who's dear to you, is in top form, and then you have to go and tell him you're not in the World Cup team.
He didn't speak to me for a week.
Exactly. So how do you react to that? Because it's very tough, but it's a decision that you had to take, aware of the fact that, hang on, it's not going to go down well.
I love such characters. And I kept knocking his room in and he didn't open for a while. And then I said, okay, I'll come back. I know you're upset. And I like those sort of players. Those sort of people who want to be in the thick of things. If you don't stand up for your players, you'll never get the best out of them. And it's in the corporate world as well. If you don't stand up for the people you believe, you'll never get the best out of them. And I firmly believed in that, whether it's Anil and during the 2003 World Cup, in 2003 tour of Australia, standing up, and he finished the year with the highest number of wickets.
Yeah, tell me about that, because by then he's already done very well. He's picked up his 10 foreign innings. You'd think that nobody would dream of going on a tour without Anil Kumble.
Yeah, I couldn't dream of it, especially on a tour of Australia. And I remember the selectors saying that, I need a left-arm spinner because of Dan Vittori, how well he bowled the series before in Australia. New Zealand were touring and New Zealand did exceptionally well against Australia. I said, no, I'm not going to leave without Anil. And I still remember that night in Hyderabad after the semi-final. And I was told that if the team doesn't do well, I may not be captain again. I said, we'll see once the series finishes. And I've been asked that question many times. Before going to Pakistan, I remember a journalist asking me that not many people have come back from Pakistan as captain. So, these are challenges, if you want to be captain of India, if you want to lead Bandhan Bank, you will be asked this question. So stand up, Be strong and ready to accept and work that hard miles, that extra miles to back what you're saying. And I think that's very, very important. I again say that when you get into these positions, it's an opportunity. It's not a pressure, it's an opportunity to make a name for yourself. And how many get into that position?
Two sets of decisions. Since you mentioned that Pakistan tour, there were two major decisions that had to be taken. India hadn't gone to Pakistan for, I think, 15 years before that. Nobody had been to Pakistan. You hadn't been to Pakistan. Were you aware or were you able to put aside the fact that India never won in Pakistan? Because
No.
I know of players who have actually told me that when we used to go to Australia or South Africa in the earlier days, there was no pressure on us because we knew we had no chance anyway.
No, I had a different team.
Exactly. So, did it help that they hadn't been to Pakistan before? Did it help that they didn't know no history of what happens there, or was it just a different attitude?
Different attitude. It helped because they were very, very good. I remember
Just ability or belief?
ability, belief, both. Melbourne, after the third test, we had a meeting because the series was decided. We got a call from the board saying that India will go to Pakistan. Some were little tentative. I still remember the discussion and I'll remember it all my life. I sat at the MCG at the end of the test and we were sitting and having coffee, and few of the players stood up and said, let's go to Pakistan, we'll win there. We've never won there, but this time we are going to win. And I knew before landing in Pakistan that we'll beat Pakistan, because it's not just I who believed it. There were 15 others in the dressing room who believed that we'll beat Pakistan. And success is that.
And that was a very high quality Pakistan team.
Yeah, corporate success is about that. It's about finding a pathway or a path to make everyone believe that we will do it right. We went to Pakistan maybe a month and a half later. We won the test and the one days, but the belief was enormous. I remember still Nasir, who's a very dear friend. They got 280 on that wicket in Colombo, and it was dry and turning. I remember him walking past me and said, "You'll not get this." We got it in 39 overs. Firstly, it had quality and it had belief that someone will stand up and see this team through. I think that was very, very special, and that was built over a period of time. So I say to everyone, success, confidence doesn't happen in one innings. It happens with the processes you put in, with the way you deal with your players, with the way you look after the people who you work with, and put them on a pedestal where they become successful themselves. Because in a team sport, in a corporate world, it's a team. Not one man can run Bandhan Bank, or not one captain can lead India. It's the other 15 who are so important.
Because one of the things the captain has to decide is he's got to look after each player's ambitions. And it's natural to have ambitions. I want to score 100. I want to take 5 wickets. It's natural. And as a leader, you have to give them every opportunity to reach those personal ambitions. And yet sometimes that might come in the way of what the team needs. How do you as a leader say, I will encourage you for your personal goals, but you know what, only up to this point?
And people understand. I was a part of a team who understood these rules and set the rules themselves. Yes, there was resentments, there was small anger, upset. In a way, it's about giving responsibility to the other person. It's about making him accountable. I, as a leader, believed in having leaders, a Dravid or a Sachin or a VVS, because I got them involved.
I've often wondered if decision making can be taught, because sometimes you just got to be a certain kind of character to say, this is what I'm going to do. I really don't care what anyone else thinks. Whereas sometimes you can be a little bit of a good boy and worry with good intentions, but worry too much about everybody else and end up taking a decision that might be good for certain individuals because you actually care for them, but which may actually be against the team. And sometimes do things that you know will get you criticism, but you think you score a point over there.
As a captain, you can't worry about
Exactly.
criticism.
Now, is that the way you were brought up, or is that something you learned as you went along?
I learned as I went along. But I was brought up in a very well-to-do family, looked after.
Yes, but were you always given what you want? I can get what I want.
Most of the time.
Very pampered.
Most of the time.
And then how do you learn to take a decision that might hurt somebody?
The game taught me. The pressure taught me. Putting people in difficult positions taught me. So I learned it with the process.
As I got to know you better, there was a dichotomy that I saw. Because the person I got to know was a fairly sensitive person. Sensitive people are not always very hard-nosed people. And I found this dichotomy in you fascinating, because when I met you personally, I found you to be a very deeply sensitive person. When I saw you saying, Steve, wait there, man. Is it same person?
Same person. Sensitive for a minute and then find a way to pull myself up.
So, in all the years that you led teams, you came up against a lot of people, or maybe when you were not captain, or maybe after you finished captaincy, and you're now observing the game from a distance. Are there qualities of decision making? Are there qualities of leaders that you found in people and said, wow, that's a good leader?
Steve, tough. Every time Australia under pressure, he would stand up. I like Nasir Hussain too. He was competitive. He was tough on the field. Very competitive as a captain.
Since you mentioned him, sorry to interrupt, since you mentioned him, he always would say you must have ambassadors in your team. Because if you take a tough decision that may be unpopular, I might say, you know what, this is right for the team. But if there is someone else in the team who's telling the other players, I think the captain's right. He said, you need those 2 or 3 ambassadors. He said, I always took care to see, I had a Darren Goff kind of person, someone who would say, no, I think Nasser's right.
It doesn't happen by setting up ambassadors. It happens only when people believe in it. So, when you have teammates will not say if they don't believe. So it requires a lot of characteristics to get to that stage. Your decision making, how you go about your job, how you deal with players, what message you're trying to send, because players understand, and I had some great players who would actually be captain of India as much as I would. And they would actually understand what's going on and not agree many a number of times. So at times it was a decision making battle within the squad. But then I would stand up, look in front of the mirror and say, I'm captain. I have been asked to decide, I'll decide. So that's the way it works, and ambassadors cannot be created. I cannot set up an X and a Y to support what I'm saying. It doesn't work like that. It will only be created through the work you do, through what you do to make this team successful. Then you don't need ambassadors. Majority of them will stand up and say that I support what the captain does.
That's a fascinating thing, this whole business of decision making. That is why the distinction between the vice captain and the captain that we had at the start, the consultant and the chief executive, or also, as we discussed briefly, what do you do when you take a decision and suddenly the factors that allowed you to take the decision have changed. And I see that, I know we're doing this for a banking company, and I see that in the banking sector all the time. It's such a volatile environment. I'd be fascinated to know how decision-making in volatile environments happens.
You have to back your instincts. They can't be more volatile than an English summer morning with the red new ball. You don't know which way it's going to swing, which way it's going to seem, but you just have to back yourself that I'm going to play it. Take decisions at the last minute. Understand, be on the game, as they say. I've always believed if you stay in the game, you'll find ways out to succeed. This idea of standing by decisions in uncertain conditions is just as relevant in banking. Strategic choices have to be made even when the environment changes rapidly. To share his perspective on making decisions under pressure, we are joined by Mr. Rajinder Babbar, Executive Director and Chief Business Officer of Bandhan Bank.
Thank you, Saurav. See, decision making in a bank also involves moments where we do not have every answer, but we still need to move forward. Market change, customer need change, and the organization must adopt with clarity and purpose. When decisions are made with a clear understanding of why they matter, teams stay aligned and even conditions are unpredictable. We have learned that ownership is a powerful driver. We take responsibility for our decisions, we also find the courage to improve them. Like cricket, business is dynamic. If I take 10 decisions, 8 to 9 will go as expected. But the one that doesn't, I make it right through execution. That is where the leadership shows its strength. It is not only about choosing well, it is also about standing by the choice and ensuring it delivers. You read the field, you understand the direction of the game, and you adjust your plan without losing sight of goal. Data supports decisions, but the leader's judgment and the values guides them. This is how the trust is built, and the trust is what keeps us moving through uncertain phases.
Thank you, Mr. Babbar, for your insights. Decision making will never be perfect, but it must be honest, timely, and backed by responsibility. That is true in sport and in banking. This was episode 2, Decisions Under Fire. In the next episode, we continue exploring leadership and values with another aspect that shapes teams and institutions. Until then, remember that hesitation can cost more than a wrong call, but a clear decision can change everything.